episode of Power Move Makers. This series was created with a simple goal in mind: to bring to the table high-level executives, successful entrepreneurs, and just all-around inspiring human beings. Not just focusing on their success, but more important, shining a spotlight on the road they traveled to get there. Now, this week's guest, he's an old friend. He is somebody who he's doing incredible things in the music industry. He is a music industry executive. He's an attorney. He is somebody that is really helping to bring back the sales in the music game. Please welcome the CEO of Art at War, Mr. James McMillan. James, what up, brother?
What's up, my brother? What's up, Prez? Great to see you, man. I'm so proud of you and everything that you've been doing with Power Moves, man. It's really, really, really impressive, brother. Really, really impressive. Congratulations on everything.
Thank you so much, James. We come to a point in our lives where, for me, it's not about Shawn. It really is about my legacy and how much I can give back to the world. So I applaud you.
Right.
Thank you for taking time out of your day to really just share so much of your wisdom and your insight with our audience and our, people who tune in every week because they want to learn. They want to one day be able to be in your position. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, man. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so the first thing I got to talk about, and this is dope, right? Because I'm used to James McMillan, and maybe I'm dating myself. I'm used to James McMillan, suited and booted, cuff links, close cut, super duper, like sharp. When I look at the attorney, James McMillan, now, like you done grew the hair out.
Yeah.
No suits. Like, this is dope because it goes to show. And I want to hear about the transition and we'll get into it. Like what made you, because every time I saw you, you was sharp, like super sharp as a tack. But
so it was intentional.
Okay.
Right? It was intentional because when I graduated from law school, I came to New York and I worked for Ed Woods and Reggie Osei. And they were in partners, I was basically working for all of them. It was Ed, Reggie, Matt Middleton, and Ian Niles. I was working in an office with all of those cats, and they had been practicing, for a long time. And they were basically, I was a law clerk. So they were mentoring me in this space, in the entertainment space in large part. And they were, amazing mentors because at the time that I started working for them, there was like a really special time period where like everybody, they were representing some of any and everybody in hip hop. Remember, they were representing all the Puff's producers, all the hitmen. Matt had DMX and Shine and DMX in his prime when he released those first two albums that would just, lit the world on fire. Ed and Reggie had, Kelly Price and Chico DeBarge and just a gang of people, man. But they were so casual. And I went to a law school that I was, we were always considered an underdog, Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas. And so I came to New York and all my guys were like, the guys I was working for were super casual, because that was the business that we're in.
Yep.
And they got along with their clients and they spoke to their clients at eye level and everybody was a mutual respect, but I wanted to stand out. So intentionally, I would wear my suits almost 24 hours a day. I would wear my suits 24 hours a day. And in my office, like I really didn't even have an office. I was sitting in like a damn near a broom closet inside their office, because, Manhattan is like, space is limited.
Yep.
So my office was literally a closet. And right behind me in my same office was the copy machine. And right above me was the microwave. So, I looked apart until you came to the office and you were like, and then I had the sliding doors, like they used to slide the doors on me and crack jokes, but it all worked out in the end, man. I really, appreciated that. But the whole like image of it was intentional to try and make sure that everybody saw me as a professional, a young Black professional in the business.
Now, you always presented yourself as extremely, extremely professional. There was no way to miss that you were definitely an attorney and you were about your business. Even though you were super cool, you always looked the part. before I move the interview along, I want to take a step back because you came in the game during the golden era, and you mentioned some key names that I really want to highlight because to you and me, we know Ed Woods, we know Reggie Osei, Matt Middleton, Ian Niles. But can you educate our audience on who these guys were and the significance of these attorneys during this time in hip hop? I want to really put, because you guys were, y'all were special. Like y'all were special in the game, whereas there were so many people in the industry and they were somewhere in front of the camera, somewhere behind the camera, working like myself in promotion and marketing, A&R, but you guys really brought a new persona to law. Y'all were the cool young lawyers.
Yeah, so I got that, like everything that I obtained from that perspective was I gleaned that and I got that from at Reggie and Ian. Those guys.
I'm sorry. Your internet got a little shaky for a second.
Oh, so no worries. Let me go back and do it again.
Yep.
Okay, so everything I got in terms of swag and persona and understanding on how to approach the business, I got that from Ed Woods, Matt Middleton, Ian Niles, and Reggie Osei. Those guys had been, before I even came to New York, they had paved a way specifically in hip hop. And they were known as the guys who could handle your affairs properly in hip hop. And they had learned their craft and they had learned everything they knew from Louise West and Virgil Roberts and other lawyers who had came before them, Bob Celestin. And they, essentially, and really in New York, it was Louise. Louise kicked the door in and paved a way for a lot of young black lawyers to learn the music business. And they did that through, she did that through her mentorship program in her office, and also as well as encouraging everybody to be a part of BSLA, which is the Black Entertainment Sports Lawyers Association. So BSLA had an annual conference, and they still do. They have an annual conference every year where everybody goes down to tropical location and kind of talks about all the hot button legal issues that are going on in the entertainment space. And so from there, you network and kind of get to know all of the players in the music business. And that's generally how I came up and how I learned the business. But again, to your point, I came in at a very special time. Timing was really important, right? I couldn't have planned it any better because I didn't know that it was going to happen that way, but it just happened in a way where when I came to New York, Ed and Reggie had just started their office maybe like a year or two ahead of that, a year or two before I got there. And they were, in tune with all the young, hot, hip hop talent that was coming up, whether it was Jay and Dame or Puff or Un, or just
they had Mary J. Blige as well.
Yeah, they had all kinds of people.
They had everybody.
They had everybody, man. I remember doing contracts. I remember doing a management contract, or it might have been a production deal for D-Dot to sign Kanye West. And everybody was like, "Yo, how do you pronounce this kid's name?" It was like, it was just, but everybody knew he was special, supposedly from Chicago. And it was like, but Dot knew who he was, and Dot had found him early and was involved with him early. But I'll never forget that. And I look back at those times. I look back at I still have some of those agreements. And I look back at it and I'm like, wow, the level of, and, so the amount of people that we came across and we did work for and helped, and we're just a small part in their climb to success was very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it was a very special time. I think that, seeing you guys represent another side of the game, even for somebody like myself, it was very inspiring because you guys moved, you're young. You move like young guys. What anybody's perception of what a lawyer was, you guys weren't that. You did the work. You were extremely effective. You were representing some of the hottest talent in the game, but you still were able to communicate and just move with all of the executives. So it almost felt like a family back then. And before we move the interview, I want to shout out and give a RIP to Ed Woods and definitely Reggie Osei. Many people don't realize a large part of why I'm doing what I'm doing is because of Reggie. I don't even think I've ever told this story online before or on camera. Reggie, most people would know him as, if you're in the industry, obviously you know him as Reggie Osei, but the general public would know him as Combat Jack. And I remember sitting down with him and him just telling me how he done everything he can do in law. Yeah. And, you know, he was like, it's Shawn, I love law. I did everything I can do with it. And now I just want to chase my passion. I want to do something that inspires me and wakes me up in the morning. And I'll never forget, because we sat down and we had lunch outside of Bryant Park many, many years ago. And he was telling me, he said, Shawn, these podcasts, they're going to be huge one day. And he was literally on the front line of podcasting. So RIP to Reggie Osei. And like I said, him and just that conversation and so many others that we had over the years about just following your passion and not being afraid to take a bold step where people might not know you. People knew him as a lawyer. And part of the reason he came up with the name Combat Jack was to create this whole new persona. But I look at him and I'm inspired by him and the work that he's done. And it really encouraged me because so many people know me from music industry and marketing promotion. So to jump in the camera, do stuff like this, a lot of it comes from him. To all my movers, if you love educational and inspirational content just like this, please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. But most important, if you know anybody making power moves just like you, share it. Now back to the video. You said that you knew those guys. How did you know them? Did you guys know each other from law school? Did you go to college? Did you grow up together? What was your affiliation with those guys before you coming to New York?
So me and Ed went to college together. Me and Ed graduated from Hampton University together. And when we graduated, we both went to law school. He went to Howard and I went to Texas Southern University. But I didn't matriculate through TSU initially. I ended up flunking out of law school, and then I ended up having to wait out for 2 years and going back to school and later on. And so but me and Ed always stayed in contact. So Ed matriculated through law school, so he was like maybe 2 years ahead of me now. When he graduated, he'd been practicing 2 years ahead of me. And he and I had always stayed in contact when he was in school and I was out of school. I would, drive up to DC, help him out, at different times, whatever he was dealing with, because he was a student at the time. He wasn't making any money. So if I could help him, I would. And we just stayed fly, So by the time I graduated from law school, I had been working at a law firm in Texas. And I was like, I had a felony on my record. From a long time ago, from during that time period when I had to sit out. So I couldn't take the Texas bar. So I ended up taking the New York bar. And because those are the only two bars I could take. I could only take New York or California. And so I took the New York bar, I passed it the first time. And I called Ed and I remember I called Reggie and I was like, yo, I need to find out if I passed the bar. I'm not certain if I passed. Can you let me know? And he, at the time they were printing the passage, the people who passed the bar in the New York Law Journal, and we were in a law building, in a building called the Lincoln Building in Midtown, and they had a law library, and Reggie was like, all right, let me go to the law library. I'm gonna let you know. Call back in like 20 minutes. So I called back to the office in like 20 minutes, and he was like, all right. He was reading, and he was like. He was like, all right, how you spell your last name? I was like, it's McMillan. And he was like, McMillian, McDougal. Like he just, and then he was like, he was like, no, how you spell it? I was like, yo, McMillan, man. He was like, yeah. He's like, yes, here, you passed. And I was like, yo, but I was in Texas, so that was part of the dilemma. I knew I needed to pass the bar, but the second part of the dilemma was I was working at a law firm, and they had expected me to take the Texas bar. I didn't take the Texas bar, I took the New York bar. So then I think when they found out I took the New York bar, they let me go. And I was like, yo, guys, where am I going? I called Ed and Reggie. I was like, yo, I don't know, I might be coming to New York. They was like, yeah, come to New York. We got you. Come to New York. You could be our first law clerk, blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, cool, bet. So I packed up my stuff, drove to New York from Houston, got to New York. And then first negotiation that I learned was like, they were like, yeah. So I was like, they were like, yeah, we're gonna pay you $250 a week, or $250. So I was like, all right, cool. So I was like, okay, when I got there, I was like, all right, so how am I getting paid bi-weekly? They were like, no, you're getting paid $250 a week. So I was getting paid $250 a week. Chuck Bone at the time, I knew him from before too, and he was gracious enough. He had a spare room at his, he had a 2-bedroom, and he wasn't using his second bedroom. He was like, you can stay in my second bedroom. I ended up staying in his second bedroom. And so I was staying in Chuck's spare room and making $250 a week with Ed and Reggie being their law clerk. And that's how I started.
There's so much about this story I gotta unpack.
Yeah.
And a huge part, when you agreed to come on the show, I was like, he's gonna help more people than he realizes, because your story, everybody wants to talk about,
I hope so, man,
the destination, right? The destination, and this is for anybody who's watching this on video, anybody who's listening to this on podcast form, streaming it to iTunes, any of the streaming platforms. The destination, it's great. Have that in your line of sight.
Mm-hmm.
But the journey is that's where the greatness is. That's where, when I listen to your story and I start to want to unpack it, I'm like, this is where you can help people, because you just said, I'm an attorney. I passed the New York bar, which is one of the hardest bars to pass in the country. You're obviously an extremely bright man, obviously. Mm-hmm. But you also said, I got a felony and flunked out of law school.
Mm-hmm.
We got to go back there, because people don't realize you can fall. You can hit some potholes. Your life does not have to be pristine, no matter what it is that you're going through. Mm-hmm. You can always pick yourself back up and say, today is a new day. It is a blank slate. It is a fresh start. And as long as I put my mind to it, I can achieve great things despite what my yesterday looked like. So number one, how did you're bright. You passed the New York bar. How does a man who passes the New York bar first time flunk out of college? And did that felony have anything to do with it?
No. So the first time I went to law school, I flunked out because I wasn't focused. It's real simple. And I want, first of all, I 100% agree with you, like that it's imperative for us to share our stories as Black men, so that there's other Black men coming behind us, younger Black men or other Black men dealing with the same set of circumstances that, for some reason or another, may feel like that they want to give up. The one thing that I never did, that I think that I've also heard like Jay-Z say, is like he never gave up. Like they just kept coming, and I never gave up on my dream. I never gave up on the fact that I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a lawyer since I was 11 years old. Now, mind you, I made a bunch of bad decisions along the way that made my journey a little bit more difficult and challenging, but I never felt like it was unachievable, right? And I found, I did the research, to find, ways to get around my circumstances. So I flunked out of law school. When I flunked out of law school, there's an ABA rule that says in order to go to an ABA accredited, American Bar Association accredited law school, you need to sit out for 2 years. So I sat out for 2 years. During that 2-year time period, I went down to Virginia, and I was basically, running around and going back to the lifestyle that I kind of had a long time ago. I was, in the college life, and I was selling weed, whatever, and I got caught with a pound of marijuana. And I got convicted in Virginia for possession of marijuana with intent to distribute, right? And during that 2-year time period that I had to sit out. So I then went, prior to me getting actually getting convicted and pleading to the charge, because they offered me, they were like, look, you can either take the charge or you can go to trial. We got you dead to rights, like your fingerprints are all on the bag and all of that. So I was like, all right. So I took, a plea, and my plea was unsupervised probation for 3 years. And then during that 3-year time period, I went back to law school. But prior to me getting convicted, I actually went, reapplied to law school and asked the dean of the law school. I had an interview with him and asked him if I could come back. And I acknowledged the fact that the first time I was there, I was immature. I was running around. I was 22 years old. I would have graduated at 24, 25. And I just, I was living life, man. I was in Houston for the first time. I was having a really good time. And that wasn't what I was there for. I was there to focus and hyper focus on trying to be the best lawyer I could be. Which school, I realized that flunking out of law school and going through the hardship of trying to overcome this felony, having this felony on my record, was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I was able to I regained a confidence in myself that somewhere along the way I kind of lost, right? And then secondly, I learned that I needed to share my story. I learned a part of my purpose. Part of my purpose was to do this and to educate other young men, black, white, green, or yellow, who had come through similar circumstances, specifically my young black men, who are consistently, told that they are not worthy or they are not as good as, and, they don't have the tools at their disposal to succeed. And I try to share this with people as many times as I can, that everything that you want to do is right here in your mind. Everything that you can do is right here in your mind. If you believe you can, right? And it'll happen. It's, so nonetheless, that was my story. I came back to New York, and then I worked for the guys, and I became a lawyer, and here we are.
Okay. So there's a couple of things that stand out.
Yeah.
That I love. Number one, I love the fact that somewhere in that moment you realize this happened for a purpose. It wasn't random. Like this needed to happen. Number one, I need to get focused. And number two, I have to share my story.
Right.
This will help somebody in my future. Even though you had not done great things at that moment, you realized at that time there was a purpose for what I went through. But I love the fact that you said you spoke to, and I think it's your dean at the college, correct me if I'm wrong, where you took accountability. You owned it. Look, I came down here, I was immature, I'm a young man, it's my first time in Houston.
Yep.
I own it, 100%. I own this, which I think so many people have to listen to that. Have to listen. It's you can get over those bumps.
Yeah.
But you cannot. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge. You can't.
No, you cannot fix it. 100%. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge, man. Like so there's an accountability, and there's a maturity that you have to do, that I had to do personally. Part of that was acknowledging my faults, acknowledging where I went wrong, and not trying to blame anybody else, not trying to say, well, so-and-so gave me a test, they shouldn't have asked me this question, and if I had did this, then none of that, man. At the end of the day, you have to own it. And that was the only reason I was able to become a lawyer as well. Like, because after I came to New York and I passed the bar, I still had to pass the moral character and fitness test. And what that means is that the bar, in order to become a lawyer in New York, is two parts. One, you got to pass the bar. The second part is you have to pass the moral character and fitness test, which basically means that they do a background check on you, right? And they ask you, they say you have to submit a questionnaire. And the questionnaire is, have you ever been convicted of a crime? If you have, tell us the circumstances and all of these different things. So in my statement, I had, from my research, I realized, I was afraid because I was like, okay, if I submit this paperwork and I showed them that I had this felony, because I literally just got off probation when I graduated from law school. So if I submit this, and I may not be accepted. So I actually hired a lawyer, and I wanted him to represent me. And he was, had submitted the paperwork for me to get for me to get an interview with the New York State Bar. And then somehow or another, maybe like a year or two had passed, and I still hadn't submitted my application. And one day, I was just like, you know what? I had an epiphany, man. I just woke up at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and I sat in front of the typewriter and I typed up my statement. I didn't send it to the lawyer. I sent it directly to the bar, and I sent him a copy afterwards. And he was, he called me. He was like, yo, what's wrong with you? You're an idiot. You're gonna make our job harder, blah, blah, blah. But for whatever reason, it was my truth, and I needed to share it. And that's how I felt. And I submitted it. And then maybe like a month or two later, I got a call, and it was from the New York Bar, and they were like, okay, you gotta come to Albany. We have an interview set up for you. And I went to Albany, got there, I sat outside this room. It was like maybe a line of people, not that many people, but maybe like 10 or 15 people sitting outside this room waiting to get interviewed. And I didn't know what was going on at first, because I thought it was just a normal interview process. But then I realized these must be the people with blemishes on their record that actually are coming here to talk, because the people that were coming out of the room were like, the people before me. There was this older white woman that went inside, and she came out and she was just bawling and crying, and her family was like, what's going on? She was like, I got to try again. I was like, oh God, so I was looking at it like, oh, this is going to be, I was prepared, because I was at the time I knew if I didn't pass this interview, I needed to submit an appeal to a 3-board panel. And so I was prepared to do that too. But I went to the interview room, and when I went to the interview room, the guy that interviewed me, he was the president of some bar association in upstate New York. And he brought out my statement. He was like, listen, I got a couple, he was like, I want to talk to you. I was like, what's going on? He was like, I've never read a statement like this before. And I was like, I just sat there and listened. He was like, I got one question. I was like, what is it? And he was like, have you been practicing law without a license? I was like, no, not at all. And he was like, okay. And then he just went on, and he was like, your story is so unique. He was like, you know what? I really admire the fact that you took accountability for, your mistakes. And I encourage you to share your story with other people. He was like, you know what? I think you'll be an excellent addition to the New York Bar. And the only thing is you must share your story with other people. And I was like, thank you, sir. And that was it. I walked out, and he said, go downstairs and you'll get sworn in. I went downstairs. Out of those 15 people, there was maybe like 3 people. 3 of us got sworn in that day. And when I tell you, this is back in the payphone days. So I walked around the corner, went to the payphone, called my parents, and they were crying on the phone. But then I got my certificate to practice, and I drove back down to Manhattan and went to Ed and Reggie's office. It was like, and so we had a celebration. And so it was a thing, man. But to your point, accountability is key. And I say that even to the people that I represent to this day. If I, especially these young men that find like themselves in these kind of criminal circumstances. And you and I talked about TK and some of the other people, some other people that we know that come across these kind of circumstances, and you're like, you try to help them where you can, and tell them like, listen, part of you getting to where you want to be is taking accountability for the things that you've done that may be holding you back, you know? And if you can't do that, then you may not be ready to go to the next level, you know? And that's what it is. So that was my story, you know?
Well, you got a beautiful story. Very, very inspiring, very inspiring. And I'm so happy that you shared it in its totality. Because that is really what's going to help this next generation, what's going to help somebody who thinks, damn, my past is going to adversely affect my future.
Right.
But accountability is one thing. I have to bring out another gem before I move this interview along. You hired an attorney to represent you. You wake up one morning, you call it an epiphany.
Yes.
I say, I'm a faith-driven man.
Oh, it's God.
In God.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, we all have this thing inside of us. Every one of us, we're born with it. Most times we choose not to listen to it. Call it intuition, call it internal GPS, call it whatever you want. Whatever you choose to call it. But you wake up 4 or 5 in the morning and against the advice, actually, you didn't even speak to your attorney. You go and write this letter.
No.
You send it out to the board and you put it all on the line and send copy your attorney on it. Clearly, your attorney's like, you just made my job that much harder. What do you hire me for? Because I would have warned you against this. But it was that very thing that when you went to Albany and you're seeing person after person come out of that room and they're crying and now they got to go file an appeal or they got to try again. It was that very thing, because you trust God, because you trust that inner compass, that inner voice, that thing that we all have. Yes. That was the thing that made the person on the other side say, you took accountability.
Yes.
You will make a great addition to the New York bar. I love that.
Yeah, no, it's God, man. It's God, and there's no other way to say it. It's God. I mean, because honestly, to your point, like, I was afraid. I didn't know what to do. I was afraid, confused, all of those emotions. And then one day it just all came to me, and it poured out over in a letter, like 3 or 4 pages, right? And I just laid it all out, and that was that. And I felt comfortable. And after that, I felt comfortable in my stance at that point. And I was like, okay, whatever happens is what's supposed to happen. And to your point, like the first thing I did was I went to Ed and Reggie's office. The next thing I did, I went to the lawyer's office and got my money back. We gave him like a $5,000 retainer or something like that. And I was like, just take, deduct the hours that you so far. And I got he gave me like $3,500. That was my first little $3,500.
Good for you, McMillan. Good for you.
Yeah, God is good.
It's a dope story, and I definitely think it is going to help a lot of people. Okay.
I hope so, brother.
So it's something else I want to talk about, because I'm really on this kick right now. Be great where you're at. Right where you're at. Be great. You don't have to be the president of a company, VP stripes. You don't have to be in that perfect position that you always dreamed about before you decide, I'm going to give it maximum effort. You told us, I passed the New York bar. I went back to New York and I sat with Ed and Reggie, and I'm making $250 a week, and I am in the equivalent of a broom closet.
Yes.
But in that broom closet, that's where you started doing your thing. And can you just speak to anybody who is giving a half-ass effort because they might not be in the position that they want to be in? So they're like, yo, I don't even want this job. I'm just doing it for a paycheck. And I'm not going to give it 120% because it's not even what I want to be doing right now. Can you speak to the importance of going hard right where you're at, being great right where you stand?
Yeah, 100%, man. I think it's really critical because it goes back to your faith and your belief in what you want to be. I think it's really critical that anyone in life, in any endeavor you choose, you really take the time to think about and meditate on the fact that this is what you really want to do, right? In my mind, I had always wanted to be one of the greatest lawyers ever, right? In my mind, this was during the Johnny Cochran era, right? When the O.J. Simpson trial was going on when I was in law school, right? It was my third year. So I had seen some of the best lawyering, in my opinion, that had ever existed, So I saw Johnny give his cross-examination and his closing statements, closing arguments. I saw F. Lee Bailey give his cross-examination. Robert Shapiro played his part. He just sat there and didn't do, he had the client together, him and Robert Kardashian, right? There was a team effort, and I saw that. And then I also knew Willie Gary. Willie Gary had done with his Wings of Justice. He had also made an important impact for civil rights and people. He was fighting for people's civil rights. People who have been injured on personal injury cases on a major level. So those guys were extremely inspirational for me, and I wanted to be seen in that light. I didn't care where I got in, and that's to your point, the circumstance did not have to be, I did not, in my opinion, I did not need to sit in some big office overlooking some amazing park or anything like that. I just needed a chance, and I was going to be the best lawyer I could be, and that confidence. So what I did was I did things that I knew would raise my confidence. I would go to court for any and everybody at the time. I knew I wanted to be a great lawyer, and that was the backbone of it. I promoted the fact that I was an entertainment lawyer, but more importantly, I wanted to be an amazing lawyer. So, people would call me. I would have clients that would call me and they'd be like, "Hey, man, I'm a producer. Can you do my producer agreement?" I would say, "Okay, cool." I would do their producer agreement because that's what I was learning to do. But then they may also feel comfortable and be like, "Hey, man, my cousin just got arrested. We don't know, we don't have any, we need a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. Can you, go get him?" And how much money you got? Now, mind you, I was getting on like $250 a week or whatever. So once I got my law license, I would go downtown and sign up and stand and deliver, and be like, I do an arraignment, and if it was but I also was smart enough to know that if it was a case that was above my expertise, then I would bring in people that I knew could handle it efficiently and effectively. And through that process, I learned a lot. I just sat there and learned a lot, just being the junior guy, learning from guys who would come before me and taking my ego and all of that stuff out of it. Because I knew that this was one day it was going to eventually make me one of the greats. Now you can't be the great just stepping out there, thinking that you're the great. You got to learn your craft, And so that was my approach, and I share that with people because I think and I'm sure you've seen this. We see a lot of guys who come out and they want to be the guy immediately, and it's like, listen, you can't. Very seldom does it happen that somebody just steps out there and is the guy. You look at Drake. Drake came in up under the wings of Lil Wayne and Baby and Slim, and he paid his dues. I didn't want to pay my dues initially, but I realized over time, I was like, you know what, you gotta humble yourself. You know what I mean? And because these guys are sharing with you this information and their resources in a way that they don't share with everybody else. Now, mind you, you're worthy, because in my instance, I was a lawyer too, right? But that didn't mean I was worthy of the relationships that they were introducing me to, or the process that they were introducing me to on how to be successful. And that's what I think a lot of people miss. It's one, sticking to it, but also being humble in your approach and understanding that it takes time to be great. You can start out, you can want to be great, and it has to start there, but you have to understand being great is a process. It's definitely a process.
No, it really, really is. And again, I go back to the journey. The journey is where you acquire the wisdom. The journey is where you acquire the experience, for good or for bad. As long as you don't give up, it's called experience. It's not a loss.
Yes.
And that's the difference. And you know, I like that you said everybody wants to come out out of nowhere and be the guy, be the girl. They want to sit at the head of the table.
Yep.
How do you do that with no experience? How do you do that and you haven't hit those bumps in the road yet? You haven't had that trial by fire yet.
You know, it's one of the things I watched one of your interviews, and I can't remember who it was with, Prez. And this is more conversational, right? Because which I love about it. I knew this interview was going to be like this, but you interviewed. I can't remember who it was, but you brought up Puff in particular, and you talked about how he's always demonized a lot of times. In my experience in dealing with Puff, he's a very special guy, right? And he's given a lot of people a lot of opportunity. And I think that a lot of times, you know, he's dealt with a lot of jealousy and a lot of people that feel like they can do what he does, but they don't realize, they discredit him and don't realize how hard it is to really get to where he's at. Like he's had some major challenges he's had to overcome in life and through his pursuit of excellence, right? And a lot of times I think because, you know, people in our communities sometimes think like, oh, well, you look like me and we're in the same age range, so therefore you're not doing anything special. I could do what you can do. And it just doesn't work like that, man. It never works like that, right? And so it's the same principles, you know, all the time. You have to put in your time. You have to humble yourself and be ready to go through, you know, get punched in the jaw and get back up and keep fighting. Because if you're not willing to do that, then you're not willing to be great. If you think you're going to step in the ring and just knock out Mike Tyson, you know, when Mike has been training all his life, you know what I'm saying? You're out of your mind. You know what I mean? It's just naive, you know, so.
We live in a culture that glamorizes, I'm a boss. We live in a culture that glamorizes, you know, and Puff might be part of this, you know, as much as I love everything you just said, but Puff, you know, he has crafted this image around celebration and affluence.
Right.
And, you know, so people see the bottle popping, people see the money, people see the private jets and the expensive cars. But what they don't see, even though that is his brand, and we get it, what they don't see are those long, sleepless nights, all of the many, you know, bumps and bruises and challenges that not just a Diddy, but so many others who are now at the top of the mountain have taken. How many, you know, times that they probably in private have cried or you know, have thought that I got nothing, you know, to show for all the hard work I'm putting in, even though the facade on the outside looks great. You know, we don't know their bank account. We don't know all the many bills that they're paying. For them to keep going and never give up. That's what it's all about. So I pray that somebody who's watching this, get over yourself. It's just that simple. Get over yourself. Be humble. It's okay to have humility, keep your head low, and just do the work, because nothing works like the work. It's
You're lying. Nothing works like the work. It's so crazy because our time like is different now because everything is online. So everybody sees all of your mistakes and all of your successes at the same time, a lot of times. And that's not easy to deal with, you know, but you know, those that are determined, you know, they deal with it and you get past it and overcome it. But yeah, it's just a different time than when we were coming up, and we're still coming up actually, because we keep reinventing ourselves, right?
Nah, so speaking of reinvention, you know, it was on its way for you, but you really have reinvented yourself, right?
Yeah.
At one point in your career, people knew you as ESQ, Esquire,
Yep.
attorney. That is James McMillan. Go to him if you need a contract done.
Yep.
But there are a lot of people today, you're just a plain and simple record exec, businessman, entrepreneur, mogul, somebody who people are desperately trying to get on your radar, because if I can get James McMillan to listen to my music and to take me under his wing, my career is gonna blow. So first, I wanna congratulate you on all that you're doing with Art at War.
Thank you, sir.
All that you're doing. For anybody who doesn't know, Art at War has, you know, you are the parent company to the whole YBN crew.
Namir, all the YBN kids, yeah.
Almighty J, Cordae, Juicy Fruit, just to name a few.
Yeah.
How does that come about?
Yep.
Because you're now a bona fide record man, first and foremost, right? And I see
that was intentional too, absolutely.
Go ahead. I see the transition somewhat.
Yeah, that was intentional too, man.
Because I remember, you know, you managing 8-Ball MJG, to take it back a little bit. But let's talk about intention for a second.
Right.
You said this part of your life was intentional. Tell me about it.
So this part, the management of I stepped into management and then production, and it was intentional in the sense of the first part wasn't intentional, right? It just happened in the sense that I got a phone call one night to I got a phone call actually during the daytime from a young lady who I had been nice to. She worked at a law firm, and she was the law clerk. She was like the secretary, right? And she called me and she was like, "Hey, I've got these guys that the partners in my office haven't been paying that much attention to, and I really like them, and I feel like they're deserving of more attention." And she was like, "I think they need a new lawyer. Would you be interested in meeting with them?" And I was like, "Okay, who is it?" And she was like, "It's 8-Ball and MJG." Now, mind you, I was in New York at the time, and Southern hip hop was becoming more dominant, but it wasn't dominant at the time, right? And so I was like, but I went to law school in Houston. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio originally, so all of those sounds I was completely familiar with 8-Ball and MJG, right? They were legends in my book, so I was like, absolutely, I'll meet with them. So I'll never forget this. The night before I was supposed to go meet with them, I got a phone call from my ex-girlfriend's friend, and she was like, "I'm in New York." It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. She was like, "I'm in New York, and my boyfriend locked me out the room. I don't know where he's at. But they won't let me in the room because my name's not on the room." She was like, "Can I come by your place and crash? I don't know what time he's coming by." And I was like, "All right, okay." So I got up and I was like, I'll come get you, right? So, because she didn't know where she was at, and I lived in Jersey at the time. So I was on my way out the door, and then she called me back. She was like, "Oh, no problem. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I woke you up. He just showed up. Hopefully I get a chance to see you while you're here." I was like, while I'm in town. I was like, "All right, cool." Went back to bed. Next day, I go to the hotel to go meet 8-Ball and MJG. When I get there, I'm standing in the lobby, waiting for them to show up. And the girl pops up and she's like, "Oh, what you doing here?" I was like, I came to meet these guys. She was like, "Who?" I was like, "I came to meet these guys, 8-Ball and MJG." She was like, "Oh, that's crazy." She was like, my boyfriend is their producer." She was like, I was like, "Oh, word." And she was like, "Yeah," because I was supposed to be interviewing with them. And she was like, "Come with me." So I walked upstairs and she walked me in the room. She was like, this is my boy. This is your lawyer. He's going to be representing y'all. He's the best, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't have to say nothing. And that's how I started representing them. And we built a relationship. And next thing I know, they were like, they need me to manage them. And they were like, "Yo, can you manage us?" And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I started managing them. I had a relationship with Puff. Was like, "Look, I got them out of the deal with Tony Draper," and was like, "Yo, listen, I got these guys." And he was like, "Yo, who?" And I was like, 8-Ball. And he was like, "Yo, bring them to the office." So we did that deal. And then we just kept going, and we sold some records, and that was my introduction to management, right? And so I learned a lot, way more about the music business than I learned just sitting behind a desk doing paperwork. Because at this point, it became, I saw how it all blended together. Like the deal points I was arguing about and all this different stuff. Now I saw the practical side of it, and why some of the things I was arguing about didn't even make sense. You know what I mean? And so it just made my approach different. And I encourage anybody, if you're a young lawyer and you have the opportunity, if you have the patience for it, right? If you really want to learn the business, then you should take a chance and possibly manage an act, because you will learn so much more in doing that. And that was my path. And I learned that. And then I realized that in large part, you need to own some rights, right? In order to really have a real say-so, or really to make, to really wheel and deal like you want to. So at the time I was managing rights, but I didn't own the rights. So I switched over to production, looking for an act to sign. And I, some producers referred me Machine Gun Kelly. And I ended up doing a deal with him and partnering with him on a company. We built out a company called EST19XX, partnered with Puff and Jimmy Iovine, sold a ton of records, turned them into a worldwide superstar. And then in 2017, I decided to start my own company, and it called Art at War, and was looking for my first act to sign. And the first act that kind of came on my radar was Tay-K. And then in my pursuit of trying to sign Tay-K, James Prince was gracious enough to help me try to get him out of a terrible situation that he was in. And in the course of us doing that, one of Jay's guys called me, my man Guns called me and was like, hey, I know you're trying to get Tay-K out of jail, but there's this other kid named YB and Namir from my hometown that is, doing the same kind of numbers, and he's got the same demographic, and you really should take a look at it. And I'm a firm believer in listening to everything, right? Because you never know where it's going to come from. My grandmother could call me and be like, you know what? I got this boy who plays the piano in the church. You need to listen to him. I will listen, because I'm not, you never know where it's going to come from, right? So at the end of the day, I took a look at it and was like, oh, snap. This is the same like demographics that Tay-K had set on fire. This guy, YB and Namir, set on fire. And I got in contact with him and his mom. And I think some other people had been trying to sign him before that, but they didn't talk to his mom. He was still a minor. So I talked to his mom, and she was like, you the first person that's called me. And, and that was, that was my approach. And I knew that from being a lawyer, that you got to get the contract affirmed if he's a kid, right? So got with them, ended up signing him, and then went to Craig and Julie. And I told them that I was like, listen, I'm a lawyer, but I'm tired of being a lawyer. I was just honest. I was like, this is, it's to some degree it's cool, but I really have found a new passion. I really want to do what you guys are doing. And I think that I could do it well with you. And Julie, I'll never forget, she was like, okay, James. And then her and Craig, and they were like, all right, and they took a chance. And I thank them to this day for giving me that opportunity. And I did a deal with them, a joint venture with them, and just kept going and kept signing acts, and we kept selling records. And I applied the experience that I had with MGK and with 8-Ball and MJG and all the other people that I represented over the years, and just kept going. And we've sold a bunch of records since then. So it's been a great experience. It's been a really blessed experience too.
Okay, you just mentioned Julie and Craig. Obviously,
Yep.
I know those names. For anybody watching, can you explain who Julie and Craig are?
Okay, Julie Greenwald is arguably the most powerful woman in the music business, and she's the chairwoman of Atlantic Records. And Craig Coleman is a co-chair of Atlantic Records as well. And I've known them for years as a lawyer, but I've done great business with them, and during the course of doing business, we've built a relationship with them, and So yeah, that's who they are.
Okay. You also mentioned you got a joint venture deal done.
Yes.
That doesn't just happen.
No.
You know, for anybody who's watching this, what is a joint venture? Why doesn't it just happen? And how the hell did it happen for you based on one artist?
Well, I think in this instance, it was more the relationship. You know, I'd had success with them in the past as a lawyer and as a person that they felt that they could do good business with, right? And really that's it. And over the years, I've brought Craig, a bunch of different deals and helped close deals with them. And that's really what it was, man. I've had success with them. And I think a lot of people skip over the fact, because I think people have asked me this before. They were like, well, why you, what makes you special? What makes me special is my relationships. What makes me special is my approach. And it's not just like I showed up with this guy and I'm a guy off the street that they just met yesterday. Like, I've had a lot of success over the years and I've treated people right and treated people with respect, even when I disagree with them, right? And in fact, I think over the course of my years in the music space, I've gone above and beyond as a lawyer. Like, I'm not the guy. I never built a reputation as the guy who's just sitting behind a desk, waiting for the phones to ring. I was always a guy who was proactive. I'd done I think prior to that we had Todd Moskowitz and Joey I.E. were at Asylum, and we had done significant business with Swisher House out of Houston, and they had Paul Wall and Mike Jones, and I'd done great business with them, and they were really helpful in helping me be seen as someone who wasn't just a lawyer, or who was a lawyer who would go above and beyond to make the deal happen, right? And so in that respect, I think I started to build a reputation for that, and that's what really helped me. The guy who would come to the office and help close the deal for the client in the middle of the night, right? And get things done, not just the guy who's working from 9 to 5, right? And building that reputation and doing it for years was I think, one of the things that helped assist me in getting to where I've been, where I am now, actually. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think people, because anybody would ask that same question, why you? But again, it goes to the journey.
Yeah.
It really, if we're going to have a theme throughout this conversation, it's the journey, man. You just, over the years, you did business, but not just did business, you did good business with people, even when you disagreed with them.
Yeah.
But you were a man of integrity. You put in the work. And when it was time for you to have your own, you can approach the co-chairmans of one of the most powerful record labels on the planet, Atlantic Records, and say, look, this is what I'm trying to do. I no longer have the passion, the day-to-day passion anyway, for law. Help me out. I'm bringing quality, I'm bringing value. So it's not like I'm asking for a handout.
Exactly.
And I think that it's just so important, just some of the nuggets that you're dropping for people to listen in on. You don't never know when somebody who you just did good by, thinking about it, is going to come to play a pivotal role in your future. Earlier in the conversation, you spoke about a girl who called you up middle of the night, and you were about to go and pick up. You're in Jersey, she's in New York.
Yeah.
And just doing the gesture.
Yeah.
The gesture. Okay, not a problem. Where you at? You're a young lady. I don't want you out in the middle of the night. I'll come get you. The very next day, God rewards you for it. So
you never know, man. That's why the overall theme of this conversation, to your point, is, again, you never know. And you have to lead with faith. One, you have to lead with, and that faith will, in my opinion, if your faith is strong enough, it will diminish the fear. because all of this stuff is you can be afraid. There's moments at every time that where things seem uncertain. Like you said, we may present well, but we may have 2 nickels in our pocket, bro.
Yep.
You know what I mean? At times, and there's definitely been times when I've been faking it till I made it. You know what I mean? So, and I'm not shameful of that. I'm not ashamed of that at all, because I think that's part of the process.
Or should you be?
Yeah, that's part of what makes people understand. I think, like, some of the most, some of the things I've done, I think that I'm most proud of is I've built some really strong relationships that I'm extremely proud of. People that I feel like I can be forthright with and tell them, hey, listen, man, I'm in a bind. I'm in a tough spot. Or I've got something really special. Like, we should, we should take advantage of this, right? Or take the opportunity in this and really make it into something bigger. It's a journey, like you said, it's a journey, and it definitely is. Sometimes, like I was saying about Puff earlier, you get people that that don't appreciate your journey, no matter where you are in life, and they're like, yo, they think they can do what you do, what you're doing. You're not doing anything special. And maybe so, but the reality of it is, can you sustain it? Can you sustain during this journey? You got to go through those hard times in order to have some sustainability, in order to get over, because the hard times are going to continue to come, and you got to be able to, build up a real strong, some stamina to get through this, to really make it, in my opinion.
No, you really do. And that's something for anybody. Like, the hard times are going to continue to come.
Yep.
There is no, I'm going to make it to the other side of this rainbow and it's going to be,
Shangri-La.
Yeah, like that ain't happening.
Nah.
It's always going to be very, very tough times.
Yep.
You never know who you're going to have to reach out to. So it's so important that over the course of your journey, do people right. Treat them with respect. I don't care if they are the janitor or they're sitting at the head of the table as the CEO. You just don't know. And it's another thing that I sat with Amanda Seals a while ago, and she said something, and I would love to put it in her words, but I don't remember it verbatim. But she was talking about somebody who she had met on her way up, and the person had treated her terrible. And then when she got to, where she was trying to go and everybody screaming her name, she re-met this guy, but he didn't remember her. And he didn't remember how bad he treated her. And she called him out on her in true Amanda Seals form. She called him out on, this is how you treated me. But people think, do you think you're the only person that's trying to get to the top? Do you think that you're the only person that will be successful? Just because you're successful now, you don't understand my drive. You don't understand my passion. You don't understand where I come from. And I will do anything to make sure that my yesterday is not indicative of my tomorrow. So great points. Another thing that I want to touch on, because we started, you started, this whole audit war. It started with one artist. Am I correct? It's Namir.
It started with Namir. Yes, exactly.
And here's the blessing. Here is the blessing. This is, you don't know what God has for you.
No.
Namir, is it him? But that spawns off Almighty J.
Yep.
And
Cordae.
then it spawns Cordae.
Yep. Amazingly talented, man. It's a blessing. To even be a part of these young men's journey is a blessing, to be quite honest, because these young men are talented and they're anointed, and they are going to be around for a while. They're all really young, and they're extremely, extremely bright young men that just need they needed an opportunity, right? And they needed some guidance along the way, and where we could, we've guided where we can, we guide them to try and help them get to the next level and achieve the success and achieve their dreams. And that's really that part is, is the fun part, right? Because you're helping these young black cats, try to get to where they're trying to be and become bosses and kings. and you know, guiding them along the way, because you know, a lot of us didn't have that, you know, or we had to make it, we had to find it along the way, and make it through patchwork networking, right? But you know, playing a part of their journey is definitely a blessing in my book.
No, it really is. How much law do you still do, if any?
So interesting fact. For the most part, I wasn't. I fell back from practicing law, because the one thing I like I never forget. You know, I want to be a great lawyer. I always want to be seen. I want my legacy to be known as being an amazing lawyer, no matter if I don't practice law anymore or not. So I fell back off of practicing for the most part, and I've got, you know, a partner. His name is Doug Donison. He handles most of the legal work, and every now and then something will come along and a special that requires my attention, that will ask, you know, and I'll put my lawsuit back on and march forward. And most recently, I started representing this young man who needed my help. Yeah, his name is Bobby Schmurda, right? So I came to New York. I met with him, and our plan and intention is to sit with it, you know, just to coordinate with his management team to really make sure that he gets the best opportunity to really become who he can be in today's music market, right? He's definitely talented. So that's, you know, that, but other than that, you know, I don't really represent a lot of people anymore on the legal side.
Okay. Music, it's a young man's game.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you have on your team who's, I mean, you got a lot of dope acts. Like, is there somebody dedicated? Do you have a dedicated A&R? Is it like who is picking these acts?
So again,
now you're better than 1,000.
Yeah, so let's go back to the broom closet days, right? So I'm still in the closet with it to some degree, right? And so I don't have a whole big team. It's me, Byron Kirkland, Guns, and we all sit back and this kid Ace, who actually referred me, Cordae, we all kind of work together to kind of help achieve the success. Jay Prince, you know, who comes in as a godfather and oversees and makes sure that, you know, anytime we need any kind of, you know, guidance, he makes sure we don't step in a pothole. And then you got Craig and Julie and all those people are, you know, success. You know, I'm in the broom closet, so I'm putting it all together as we go. But it's been working, and I think as we achieve more success, we'll have the opportunity to bring on more people and give more people an opportunity. Because to your point, it's a young man's game. You got to keep some young, fresh ears, you know, that are going to be tuned into the street and letting you know what's going on, right? And so it's critical.
Before we conclude, I just want to tap into, because you're on both sides. You're on the record side. You know, you have so much management experience. You have so much law experience. The whole world is reeling from COVID. Slowly but surely, it's starting to open back up. But you know, we would be fools to think that the world is as we have once known it. And I'm saying to say, many artists, you know, they don't necessarily live off royalties. They never have. Shows are where they fed their family. But over the course of the last year, many of them have been grounded. Where are they performing? Can you give some advice to artists out there? What are some other avenues of opportunities that they should be looking into so that they never find themselves back in this position again if they're unable to perform? Are there any other avenues or revenue streams or things that you think that artists should be looking into to make sure that they have money coming in even when they can't physically go out there and touch the stage?
I think that a lot of young artists need to realize that, yes, times have changed. And in order for them to be successful, they have to stay consistent. The internet has made it very challenging to cut through, right? Because everybody is like I think, you know, there's a gang of records coming out every week, right? And so in order for you to kind of make some noise, you have to stay consistent. So I think that in order to get to a point where the phones are going to be, you're going to be in the incoming call business, meaning calls are coming in, people are saying, hey, we want artist X to perform on our stage next week or next month, and we are willing to pay him or her X amount of dollars, right? In order for that to happen, you have to make some significant noise. In order to make significant noise, you have to drop consistently, meaning that you need to have something in the marketplace coming every, I would say, 30 to 45 days, right? 45 days being the max. Something needs to come out every 30 days. Song, video, freestyle, cover, something online that you can share with your fans or feed to your fan base every 30 days or so. And until something connects. And when it connects, if it connects, but at the same time, not only just dropping something, but you also have to do the work behind it, meaning like you have to feed it to your fans. You have to, be in contact with your fans. I ask this of my artists all the time, and new artists all the time. Do you know who your number one fan is? Most people don't know who their number one fan is. They haven't taken the time out to see who's the person that's the most vocal person in their hemisphere. It's like, oh my God, I love you. Oh my God, I'll do anything. That person, you want them to be your biggest champion, and you should be interacting with them. They should be the person that gets the music first, possibly, or they're seeding it to everyone else. Maybe they're the president of your fan club, but take the time out to make a really smart approach to build your base. I think in today's climate, a lot of people suffer from wanting like popcorn success, meaning like microwave popcorn. You put it in the microwave, boom, it's arrived. No, it generally doesn't work like that. 9 times out of 10, there's a lot of work that needs to be put in order for people to get to know you. Because again, remember, every Friday, I think Spotify is it's like 60 some odd thousand artists that are dropping new music every Friday. Like, how do you think you're going to cut through if you're just dropping one record and being like sitting back waiting for success to call you? It just doesn't work like that. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and so how do you increase your chances for the phones to ring, to be in the incoming call business? It's consistency. It's consistency. How do you afford to drop music and drop videos every other week or every 30 days? You got to build a team. You got to take your time out to find out who those people are that are along your journey that are willing to work, possibly for free. Possibly those people that would do what I did years ago and be the guy who makes $250 a week. That like do it for a minimum because they really just want to learn and they want to be in the business and they want to assist and play their part. That's not an easy process. That's not an easy process. And the greats have done it along the way. The greats who have done it before me, whether it be Ahmet Erdogan, whether it be Craig Coleman, whether it be Julie Greenwald, whether it be John Janik, whether it be Jimmy Iovine, whether it be Puff or James Prince, or Slim and Baby, they've all taken the time out to build a crew that will, of people that are dreamers that really wanted to be and take things to the next level. That's the hard part. That's the hard part. Because that's not the part you see on TV. That's not the part that they play in the video. You don't see that part. And that is where the magic is made. And that's where the big bucks are made. If you can do that, then you can find success. Success will find you. You will be in the incoming call business. And that's a sweet business to be in.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, I want you to put your law hat back on for 1 second.
Okay.
I'm a young artist, or maybe I'm an established artist. If I'm vetting out a new lawyer, what are some key questions I should be asking? What are some criteria I should be looking for?
The one thing you want to know is, one, do you have the expertise to do what I need you to get done? Right? First. Second, what is your retainer? Right? Is there a retainer agreement? Are they going to do it on contingency? How do they get paid? So there's no dispute on that. Third, what I think part of 1 and 1A is, do you have the expertise to get to do what I need to get done? And I would say 2, do you have the relationships to do what I need to get done, right? Because depending on what level you're playing at, you may hire a new lawyer, but the new lawyer may be a guy who, is trying to be in the entertainment business, but was really not an entertainment, like any entertainment business. And therefore, he may be able to read how, what a contract is supposed to read and say, well, listen, these things are missing from a contract or should be included. But you may not have the relationships to actually push things forward for someone. So I think those are the three critical things. Do you have the know-how? Do you have the relationships? And then what's your fee?
Got you. We in hip hop, we just lost two iconic figures who made incredible music. We're seeing a lot of our heroes leave. What is your thoughts on the passing of DMX? I know Matt Middleton, you work closely with him through Matt Middleton. Yep. Also Black Rob, you had a relationship with him when you were doing so much with Puff. What is your
bad boy?
Yep.
This is really sad. I think the overall arching theme, I think, which is critical, and I was talking to some people over at Atlantic about this, is I think that we need to suss out or figure out a way to help some of our people get either the mental help they need, or really it's like a health plan, and really get them to like buy into it in the sense of they have to participate in it. Because some of our people suffer from, a lot of our people suffer from mental illness. Some people also suffer from addiction, right? And those things are really sad, whether it be alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, whatever the vice is, it has a potential to change, your health. And as we get older, our health, the things that we thought may have been cool back in the day, and, getting drunk or smoking, whatever it is you're smoking or whatever, those things, when they become addictive, they can be really dangerous, and I think that if you don't seek or get the right help, then it can be problematic. And in addition to that, the mental help that we need, because as a people, as Black people, a lot of times we suffer from a lot of trauma, right? And, it's a lot of times it's unspoken. We don't talk about it. We don't want to let anybody know. It's taboo to say I'm getting, psychotherapy or anything like that. And a lot of our people really need help. And I think that those things really need to be addressed, and in a meaningful way. Because I think there's, those of us who are journeymen, who have been in the business, who have had success, have all come across people that you're like, wow, this, I love this guy and I love his music, but this guy needs help. You know what I mean? And you see people act out all the time, whether they're like, flying off the handle, or, doing things that you're like, what's wrong with this guy? And we like applaud it sometimes, or like, oh, it's funny, it's cool, but it's really not cool. These people need help. They need help, man. And whether they're willing to get it or not, I think, it seemed like, like from what Kim Kardashian was saying, Kanye needed help. Like, yep. He's in our face now, and he's one of our heroes, right? And but these people need help, and it's up to us to try and help them find the help that they need.
Agreed. James, thank you so much for your time. I love your story. I know that you're going to help so many people who tune in and watch this interview or listen to it in podcast form. So I thank you for your openness. Where can people find you, James?
Call my office, 212-986-6262, or email me, and james.mcmillan@jempc.com.
You're the first person who ever gave a direct number. I thought you were going to give your Instagram.
No. You know what? My office number has been, I'm listed, and, so it's like, you can call me. And the one thing that I've done is I've kind of like, I take pride in the fact that my vetting system is pretty good. Like I get on the phone with you for a few minutes, but if it's not going anywhere, I have a way of respectfully getting off the phone too,
But James, I love you know, this second act in terms of your career in music. I love the transition. I love that you are brave enough. And I think, you know, I would have loved to spend more time on that. It's not easy. A lot of times people work for many, many years and they're doing one thing and that's what everybody knows them as, and that's what bills. So they're afraid to jump out there and try something new. They're afraid to take a bold step into their passion, into their purpose. And I love the fact that you're doing it and you're highly successful, but more important that you were willing to share, be open and honest. You are a true power move maker, and I thank you so much for your time.
Prez, thank you so much for your support, man, and thank you for having me. I appreciate you, brother. All right, keep going strong, bro.
I'm trying. Continue blessings and success.
One love, my man.
What's up, guys? Thanks for sticking with me to the end of the video. Truly appreciate you. If you like anything you heard here today, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you know anybody that can benefit from this message, feel free to share. Peace and love.